Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall drywall repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, good morning to you. So you brought a guy along that I met once or twice, but you met him in group or
Yeah, he's
Chamber
part of my
Commerce,
networking group, and you were in my group for almost a year.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's cool he's here because I've known him for a while.
Yeah.
And I've known his business. We actually just did a big purchase with him recently for a thing. So
Well, he's an interesting guy on his own, but the fact that he's also a franchise owner is really interesting to me too, and I'm looking forward to digging in.
yeah, you know that always piques our interest when we have people who have purchased franchises as we're on our journey to try and sell as many of those bad boys as possible. Well, I would like to introduce Marcos Calvert Barba from The Glass Guru. Welcome, Marcos.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, welcome.
I'm glad I only say your
nice to
first
be
name.
here.
I never say your last name, so that's good. But we are so glad you're here, and our audience obviously is cheering you on. So you are the owner of a locally owned franchise, The Glass Guru.
Yep.
Right? And so I can't wait to kind of dig in to learn more about you so our audience can learn some of the tips and tricks and wins that you've had over the years in your story. So why don't you just kind of let us know kind of who you are and how you got here?
Sure. Well, it's a long story, but I'll sum it up in a couple of words, I guess.
You got time.
I came from Mexico. I was doing a little construction back there, just on a side, and that's how I became in love with the glass industry. There's two things that I think that makes any area look amazing. One is glass, and then the other one is lighting. And if you put those two together, you can make the crappiest place look amazing.
Yeah.
So when I decided to move here and I had to choose what industry we're going into, I found out that glass is a very noble business in the sense that not a lot of people do it themselves. You know, there's three things that I found out that a lot of people have to hire to do. One is electricity, the other one is plumbing, and the other one is glass. For obvious reasons, all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's got a certain nobility to the business.
I never thought of that nobility. It's true. I mean, I might change a light switch, I might change a faucet, but I'm not gonna change the glass in my
Right.
window.
Exactly. And so it is a more technical business with its pros and also its cons. You know, the more specialized the business, well, the more difficult it is to get labor and the more expensive the labor is as well.
Well, I always think that glass is dangerous, right?
It can be very dangerous, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes even we get careless because you get so used to handling glass that sometimes you're not even thinking about it when you should be thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get killed very easily by handling large pieces of glass.
Yeah. And you're dealing with like all kinds of stuff. You don't do new windows, but you do glass replacement.
We do glass replacement.
Yeah.
We're going into storefront more and more. We're going into
So trending towards commercial work.
Well, we're trying to do get our hands on different things, but commercial has larger pieces of glass, of course, and but we basically replace glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a mutual friend who the spouse manages a bar in town, and it was on the corner, and someone ran into. Well, one was vandalized, right? Someone threw some rocks on it, and broke a bunch of glass, and then Marcos and his team went out, replaced all the glass, and a week later,
Yeah, that was fun.
someone ran into him.
Is that right? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
He had to go back out and do it all over.
We went back and the bartender, he had a face, he has his face, and he says it didn't last us for not even 2 weeks.
Oh, mercy.
So those are big old pieces of glass you had to replace.
Yeah,
Not once, but twice.
twice.
Yeah. Well, we have we do really good work at Hole in the Wall, but we moved someone's table, coffee table, had a glass top, and in the process, we just chipped the edge of a beveled edge.
Oh.
And obviously, we're a company that honors our work, and so we are replacing it for them. So, of course, we called Marcos, and Marcos, to the tune of several hundreds of dollars at a discounted rate, still had to help us. So it's not cheap. Glass, the material costs alone are expensive.
Oh no, and I mean, glass has always been considered. I don't like to use the word cheap, but it's always been accessible. for the first time in history, even I think, oh God, glass is expensive. Then again, everything is, but glass. But I do glass, and then glass is expensive. We used to sell a lot of tabletops. That's one line of business that has gone down for, again, it could be anything you do to glass, whether it's beveling, adding holes, corner notches, whatever you do to glass makes it more expensive.
Right.
Considerably. So if it's just a square tabletop, you might not end up spending more than $300-$400 maybe. But if you wanted it bevel, if you want 3/8 inch, half inch with round corners, you're already going to $600, $700, $800 tabletop.
Yeah.
It's really expensive, and sometimes it's more expensive than the table per se. So. Yeah, that's a line of business that, for obvious reasons, is going down on with us. But
and it's not like, listen, we can all go buy a saw at Home Depot and chop our own trim.
right,
You just can't go and bevel an edge with a tool you buy at a local hardware store.
right.
This is not something that we can do on our own. This is something that you have to hire a professional like you to do.
Yep.
And not many people do it, right? So, obviously you don't do all of it yourself.
No. And there's actually a couple of things that we have done at factory. Beveling is one of them, for example. And something that a lot of people don't know is that beveling is no longer done in Orlando. Or hardly. So we got to go with vendors that are 2-3 hours away in order to get the beveled glass. So that makes it even more expensive. Then there's other features that you might want to add to your tabletop or to your glass that they're not done here in Orlando, or that we don't get here in Orlando. So we got to go further out and get different vendors. And like you were saying, glass nowadays is a lot more expensive.
Do you find it to be a very competitive business?
I think every business is a competitive business. I'm still looking for the business where there's no competitors.
Yeah.
It is very competitive, and like in any other business, you got your curve. You got the 20% that are really good competitors. You got the 20% that are really bad competitors, and then you got that 60% who are right in the middle that are just okay.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to stay on the 20%, the good ones.
Yeah. We identify with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, because I don't know. I personally am thinking in my head, who do I know that does what you do? I know one company. They used to be, only because they were in our neighbor here for a minute.
Right.
And outside of that, I don't know anyone that does.
There's one company over on Orange Avenue has been for many, many years.
Yeah.
Probably maybe even a second generation type company.
To kind of go back to where you said it's noble, I really think glass is prestigious. It is kind of because it's ornate enough that you can really accent and accentuate a room. Yeah. Obviously, the more light you let in, the better the room is. People love that. But I think that's kind of a neat industry. I never really thought of it that way. When you mentioned that for the first time here, I heard that. I'm like, that's true. We use glass a lot.
Yeah.
I think we take it for granted.
Yeah.
Just like drywall, honestly. People,
it's not something you see. You see through it.
Exactly. You're not supposed to look. You're not supposed to look at it. You're supposed to look through it. Yeah. So you only notice when there's something to notice. Mm-hmm. And so when it's foggy, when it's cracked, when there's a little
I'll tell you what, I notice on my home windows, it has a green tint to it sometimes. And I know that's something that they put on the windows during manufacture.
Yeah, that's actually, and you're going to be seeing a lot more because low E is going to be growing, and legislation is going to go towards being more energy efficient.
Okay.
So we're going to get to that point where all the glass is going to end up being, double panes with low E. Low E is a film that goes on the inside of a double pane glass that reflects the UV rays and keeps your house cool. So, and even though it's not intended to be tinted, it does give it a little greenish or bluish look to it.
It does, yeah.
And but that's what keeps your house cool and does a really good work. There are certain things that you're always questioning yourself. How much of a difference is that going to make against what I'm paying for? I would say low E is you really want low E in your house. Yeah. It's about 30% more expensive than just a regular glass, but it does make a big difference.
Yeah, in your electric bill.
Oh yeah. Oh, and even just by being in a room where there's no low E and being in one where there is, or when we've replaced all the glass in a room from being without low E to with low E, the difference is brutal.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of new technologies. I mean, you also do like shower enclosures and stuff.
We do shower enclosures. Shower enclosures is a complicated. That's probably the line of business where we get the most go backs to.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. Number one, showers are expensive, because we do frameless showers. We hardly ever sell frame showers because we can't compete with the big companies like Lowe's or Home Depot where they already sell them. So we try to focus more on frameless showers. What's the difference? Well, number one, glass is flexible. Glass wobbles. The larger the piece, the more it wobbles, of course.
Yeah.
So the larger it is, the thicker you want to go with the glass because it'll wobble less. So the larger, for frameless showers, you go with anything above 3/8 of an inch. So it's 3/8 or ½ inch.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow, that's a big, heavy
Yes.
piece of glass.
It's a
isn't it?
very heavy piece of glass, but it wobbles less. That's actually called the deflection of glass.
Okay.
But when you're installing a frameless shower, a couple of things that customers should know is, number one, you might not get a seal-tight shower. Number two, if the walls or the floor where it's going to be sitting, if it's not perfectly level, and no wall there's no perfectly level wall in the world, not even in Buckingham Palace.
We know a thing or two about walls.
Not even in Buckingham Palace. But any imperfection you will notice because glass is cut straight.
Yeah.
So when you put a straight line against an unstraight line, you'll
it
notice those
emphasizes
differences.
the flaw. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so that's where we can seal it with silicone, of course, but you'll notice that. So the larger the imperfection, the more you're going to notice. And
But there's some technology in that glass. Like, my house was built before this technology, so I have to squeegee my glass shower.
yeah.
Now you don't.
Well, you do it a lot less. Yeah, there's a couple of brands. It's for example, we work with a couple of brands like Diamond Fusion, just being one of them, where the water slips through the glass a lot faster. Sort of when you use Rain-X on your car,
Windshield,
on your windshield, and you do see it, but you still got to squeegee, but you squeegee faster. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it so often.
Oh, I do it. You're a married man when your wife trains you to squeegee that shower.
And even though you don't squeegee as much, you should be doing it because it'll make the life of your shower be a lot longer, but it does make a difference. So yeah, it's good. And then there's some other technology that for example, now we have turtle glass in buildings that are by the coast. So
turtle glass.
yeah, because glass guide themselves with through the stars. So if they might get disoriented if they see the reflection of the stars on the buildings.
So it's actually glass that's made to help the turtles not get disoriented.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so that's going to be a growing thing. Now there's also bird glass. So for all those kamikaze birds,
Seen a few.
we've seen a few. So the bird glass has like patterns into the glass, and so they don't hit it.
They don't hit it. Wow.
And then there's even some cooler glass that now has solar panels inside it, so you could basically cover your building. And I just saw this one at the Glass Expo last year. So you could cover your building with solar panel glass.
Wow.
And it's all a whole solar panel. You make the building a solar panel. It's
crazy.
amazing, and it looks really cool.
Yeah.
And you could do it in awnings, and you can do it in just the glass building. So I was asking actually the guys from Vitro who were selling this kind of glass, and I was like, why don't we see this in every building? This is amazing. And they were saying, well, number one, the glass is just one thing. The hardest part is how do you integrate it to the rest of the electrical system in the building?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. It's not like a plug and play sort of thing.
Right.
So,
Well, that's interesting. So you obviously you're the glass expert here, but you weren't always that, right? So you've had other jobs, and you came from Mexico City, like we talked about. I'd like to talk about your journey, kind of getting here for a second. Like, what you said you were doing some construction on the side, but what was your main gig over in Mexico?
at the time, I had two main gigs. Number one, I was a fiscal consultant. So, I worked at a family business in the sales area.
A physical consultant?
Fiscal. So
fiscal consultant.
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah. So designing strategies to legally pay less taxes. And number two, I had a catering business because I'm also a chef by trade. You know, I studied culinary arts with the CIA in Mexico, which is the Culinary Institute of America, by the way.
Yeah, not Central Intelligence.
Exactly,
Agency.
not Central Intelligence Agency. And
So you're a CIA trained chef?
I am CIA trained chef. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean I did it for a long time. I did that for a long time. I worked at several restaurants, hotels. I owned a bar. Owning a bar is, by the way, never as exciting as it looks. It's not like watching Cheers.
Oh,
and it's a place where you don't want to know anybody's name, actually.
oh,
and
So all this is in Mexico City?
yeah, all that was in Mexico City.
Yeah.
I actually also at some point I went into the haz waste management business, and I was there for several years, like for 7 or 8 years, doing haz waste management, and until Safety Clean, one of the largest companies here in the U.S., hired me to open a couple of branches for them in Mexico. And so we did that, and but I went back to catering and fiscal consulting, and then we decided to move to the U.S., and that's where we decided to switch into a different business, and this is where we found that glass could be the business that we wanted to be in.
So what made you decide? I mean, first of all, I'm curious how this steps on. So at one point you said, you know what, it's time. We're going to move to America.
Yeah.
Right. You and your family.
Yes.
We're going to go. And well, now you had to figure out what you wanted to do. Did you select this industry prior to that decision? Did you say, I want to go to America to do glass? Or you said, I'm going to go to America. Let's find something to do.
For a long time, I've wanted to go into the home improvement industry. There were several doors we could have gone into, pools or glass or lighting or whatever. When we came here, well, it was during pandemic, so opening a restaurant was not even a good idea. It wasn't even on the table. So plus, I didn't want to be stuck in the restaurant for 7 days a week.
Right.
And I got two kids, and I really enjoy spending time with them in the evenings and the weekends. So, yeah, that's why the food industry was not.
Yeah. I like to cook. My Instagram is nothing but food. Yeah. And everyone's, you should open a restaurant. I go, there's no way I'm going to open a restaurant. I enjoy my solitude. I enjoy my nights and weekends. I don't want to have to work holidays. And frankly, if I don't have to deal with customers, it's probably good. I'll frequent a restaurant, but
yeah. I always equate owning a restaurant to being a dairy farmer.
Right.
Every day, twice a day, 365 days a year, those cows got to be milked.
Yeah.
There's no escape. There's no close off. There's no shutdown. There's just get up and do it again tomorrow.
Well, and then we realized that, we thought that food industry was essential because we all eat, but apparently they're not essential. And during COVID, they pulled the rug out from underneath their legs.
They did. But you know what was essential? Home services.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. And that's what we took a look at.
Great segue.
Yep. No, it was. That's what we noticed. Home services were growing so much during the pandemic, and it makes sense. The money that wasn't being spent on experiences like traveling or restaurants was being spent at home.
Yeah,
because that's where everybody was. It's a very noble industry.
Yeah. So you were looking around to do something in home services. Yeah. And what you said you looked at several others. You had choices?
We had choices, yes. We looked into some pool franchises.
Okay.
And what else? I mean, we looked into education franchises, but which is not home improvement related. But then we found this one, and we looked at the glass industry, and the glass industry has been growing straight up. I mean, without exception, every year.
Yeah.
And
so was the franchise model the only thing you're thinking about? Like you weren't just buy a business here?
Well, we knew that we could open a business organically and just grow it from start. Mm-hmm. But being that we were pursuing the E2 visa, it is well looked at. Franchises are well looked at because they're well perceived because it's a proven model.
Right.
So to the person who's inspecting your business plan, a franchise gives him this kind of, it brings him peace of mind, if you may, because it's like I said, it's a proven model, so they know that you're most likely to succeed.
Yeah, there's a level of confidence that comes from a customer's perspective.
Well, exactly. If you're buying a successful franchise, then there's confidence that you have that this business will make money.
Exactly. So that's why we decided to go with glass. I mean, the numbers looked all right. It had a differentiator, which is important. I mean, we were looking for a differentiator because you can buy a franchise, but you got to look at the support that you're getting from corporate, the training that you're getting from corporate. I knew there were differences from glass in Mexico and the U.S. Oh. For example, in Mexico City, nobody has double pane glass.
Oh, really?
2% might have double pane glass because Mexico City has a privileged weather. Nobody has AC. Nobody has heating systems. No, it's a great weather all year round. I mean, there might be 2 or 3 weeks out of the year where you're like, oh, I'm a little hot, and you might turn a fan on, and that's enough. Or there might be 2 or 3 weeks out of the year where you're like, oh, it's chilly. I'll put on a jacket, and that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Other than that, you don't need AC or
you know what?
I
never realized that. Mm-hmm. Yep. So what is the altitude of Mexico City? I know it's like exists in a giant bowl.
Yes.
But it's sort of at altitude,
it's
right?
It's about 2,000 meters, which is about 6,000 feet approximately.
So it's a mile-high city.
Yep, it is.
Denver.
Yep, it is. And it's in a valley, like you said. So we're surrounded by mountains.
Yep.
And it was built on a lake.
I've never been to Mexico City.
No, I never have either. I'd love to go.
I always thought
being
it was
a foodie, and again,
it's a foodie city.
That
is right.
It is a foodie city. Oh. It's most worth it.
I love Mexican food.
Oh, trust me, you want to go to Mexico because you'll not only get Mexican food. The great thing about eating in Mexico City is that you could get premium restaurants and pay an average ticket compared to here.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if there's one cuisine, we joke about at lunch and stuff. It's like, if I could just eat one cuisine the rest of my life, what would that be?
Mexican. Yeah, hands down, Mexican.
I love
essentially Texican. I think
I'm not objective with that, so I'll say Mexican as well.
Yeah. Well, Texican's good.
Yeah.
But after spending a little bit of time in Cancun, I had some really good, authentic. Like the chef was delicious. It was amazing.
You know what? I think we're gonna I'm gonna put together a trip to Mexico for anybody who wants to sign up, and we're gonna go. It's just gonna be about food. Food tour.
I'm hungry already.
And a lot of walking in between just to make ourselves more hungry for the next lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah, because we can't just eat all day, so we got to...
No, we had a friend that used to do that. He'd have 3 breakfasts every morning, just meeting with people.
Yeah.
So, but actually, I'm actually going to do that. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Oh,
yeah.
I might have to. Yeah, if I'm with someone from Mexico City, they can show me the routes.
That's what you would want.
I think I'm in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So you decided that you're going to do the Glass Gurus. You have to do an E2 visa because you want to come here. So obviously there's laws and things you're bound to.
Right.
That. So it's you, your wife, and your wife. You said still works remotely at her current job.
Yes.
In Mexico.
Yep. My wife is a buyer for a department store in Mexico, and she's still working there remotely. So. Yeah, she's blessed in that sense, and so she's at home with the kids, which is great. Because my wife was asking before we moved. My wife asked one of her best friends from college what it was like living in the U.S. because she had moved to New York, and she said living the American dream is moving from a 5-star hotel into a do-it-yourself sort of thing. You know, in Mexico we used to have a nanny because it was affordable, and we would have, and she could cook and she would do her house and whatever. And
you come here, and none of that.
Exactly. You know, I remember when we bought our house in Mexico, it had a little garden. It was actually a very small garden, but I really enjoyed it. So. You know, I felt very into the gardening spirit, and so I went to Home Depot and bought all my tools, and I said I'm going to do all my gardening. And I did for the first 2 or 3 times, and I spent 4 hours gardening, and I ended up sweating, and I was really tired. And then I asked my parents as a gardener. I said, "Hey, Carmelo, how much would you charge me to do my little garden here?" I said, all that. I'll put it in dollars. So he said, yeah, for that, about $10. Like, what? Yeah. So that was the last day I did gardening at my house. And Carmelo was the one who did it. And I would say, hey, you know what? I'm going to pay you for the next 2 months up front. Here you go. Yeah. And just
take care
drop in whenever you want. Just take care of it. And that was it.
Yeah.
So,
well, we were kind of joking off air before we started recording that you're Mexican, but your accent isn't strong. Listen, I live in Vegas, and there's a lot of Mexicans in Vegas, and a lot of thick accents.
Yep.
Although I will tell you a quick story. I was in Texas, and I saw the most Mexican-looking Mexican guy. If you could picture a Mexican guy, little darker. I mean, like he had he wasn't a sombrero, but it was a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And he went to open his mouth to talk, and you thought you were going to hear Speedy Gonzalez talking, and he goes, "Howdy, partner, welcome." And I was like, I was blown away.
Yeah,
I was just like, it's like that voice does not match the face. So you obviously don't sound very.
You can't count on it.
Obviously, your Spanish does, but
Yeah.
So curious. I think you said there was lots of good cartoons. Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, my mom hated us watching so much TV, but Mexican TV is really bad. So we relied on cable ever since we were young, and so my brothers and I would watch cartoons every Saturday. We would watch basically everything. I mean, we watched. We watched The Price is Right. Whenever we were sick and we had to stay at home during a school day, we would watch all those contest shows. The Price is Right and
game shows.
Oh, the game shows, right? And you'd be surprised at how much the U.S. culture permeates to Mexico.
Yeah,
brutally. I mean, especially now with the media and everything. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
So now that you're children, are they just boys? You have 2 boys?
Girl, boy.
Girl, boy?
Yeah.
Now, have they acclimated? They thick accent, no accent? They doing well?
It's funny. I thought my girl still has an accent, and she still speaks Spanish we try to speak Spanish in the house. Yeah. It's funny because in Mexico, and my mom would always speak to us in English, even though she does have an accent. She would speak to us in English because she always said that we needed 2 languages.
Yeah, smart lady.
Yeah, and so we did the same thing with our kids. So at home, we would always speak to the kids in English. We would watch everything in English. Cartoons, movies, everything in English. So they were always, in school, they were always the best in English.
Right.
But when we moved here, we're like, okay, so now we're going to have to switch that. So at the house, we always speak in Spanish.
Okay.
and actually, the one who's having a hard time doing that is my youngest because he's only 5, and we've been here for, they moved in like 2 years and a half. 2 years ago, most likely. So basically, he's been here for most of his life. I mean, or at least 40% of his life.
Yes,
you can tell that his native language is going to be English, and you can tell that because of the way he structures his sentences and the way he puts his adjectives and his nouns together.
Yep.
In Mexico, regularly you do it the other way. You would say here a red car, so you put the adjective first and the noun second. In Mexico, we regularly do it the other way around. El carro rojo, right? So it's, you first put the noun and then you do the adjective.
Yeah. Yes.
So the way he starts structuring his sentences and his everything, you can tell that he's now thinking in English.
Okay.
And translating it into Spanish.
And which I'm sure is quite normal because he's been to school, the television he watches, you guys speak
everything. So
at home.
So it's really funny. It's funny and it's really, really cool.
Ready to start your own business? How would you like a jumpstart? Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair is now offering franchise opportunities for strong entrepreneurs. When you franchise with Hole-in-the-Wall, we help you get up, running, and ready to start generating revenue fast. You get access to our comprehensive training program, continued support, and our proven business model that has allowed us to experience explosive growth. Achieve financial success while providing a valuable service to your community. Take the first steps towards achieving your entrepreneurial dreams. Go to holeinthewallfranchising.com. How did you land in Orlando?
That's a good one.
Yeah, why'd you choose here?
Well, my brother lives here. So he worked for Siemens at the time. And in the end, so when we decided to move, we pondered several cities. So we pondered Canada, the U.S., and Europe.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
That's the first time I've heard of somebody coming in who said, no, we were looking further afield.
Yeah, we pondered several cities around the world, and we really put our mind into it because, moving is a big decision. Whenever anybody moves from their country, there's a big reason why they're moving.
Okay.
Here's the thing: nobody wants to leave their country. Nobody wants to leave their home. For an adventure, yes. Hey, it's fun. Let's go to college. Let's go. Let's do it a couple of years. But home always calls, and it's hard. So when we were pondering where to go, Orlando had a lot of advantages that other places didn't. For example, you got several flights from Mexico to Orlando every day, because of Disney. And so we're close to the family. My parents still live in Mexico. My sister lives in Mexico.
It's just a direct flight, right?
It's a direct flight. It's a direct flight. You've got several of them of a day. So, you're always thinking in case of an emergency or anything, you need to fly there, or somebody needs to fly here. You've got direct flights. My brother lives here, so we live 3 minutes away, which is great. I mean, we've been here several times visiting my brother.
So at the end of the day, was it just family that pulled you here? Were there things in other countries that, like perhaps Canada or Europe, you just like, no?
Well, there's no perfect place in the world.
Okay.
Canada offers a lot of advantages. Their health system offers. I would never say it's better or worse. It depends on where you're standing, where you can take more advantage of it or not, or. So Canada offers a lot with health service and
right.
And so does Europe.
Mm-hmm. With Canada, I'm thinking you have an obvious climate adjustment there.
That was the other one. I was actually very inclined to go to Canada because I'm a cold sort of, I like the cold, and my wife isn't. So you could tell whose opinion. More. Yeah.
So he burned his coat and moved to Orlando.
Exactly. I've always had problems with the heat, but my wife has always had problems with the cold. And,
sure.
And in the end, my opinion wasn't that important, apparently. So, but in the end, my brother was here. It made sense, like I said, family, and also. There is no place like the U.S. to open a business, I think. I've never opened one in Europe, so I can't really tell. But the size of the economy in the U.S. is surprising.
Yeah, no, it absolutely dwarfs everything else.
And you don't feel it unless you don't know what health feels until you've been unhealthy. It's sort of the same thing with the economy. And a friend of mine said it the right way. A friend of mine moved from Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, which is a very small beach. It's a very small town.
Right.
It's nice beaches, of course, but it's a very small touristic town. And he moved there. And once we went to all of my friends from high school, my group of friends from high school went to visit him to Puerto Vallarta. And he said something that really clicked. He was telling us, because, we were all complaining about how difficult it is to do business in Mexico City and blah, 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 and the insecurity, and there's never enough business, and their vendors and their employers and their whatever, employees and everything. Mm-hmm. And he interrupted us and said, look, guys, you don't realize the size of the economy of Mexico City because you are used to it. You don't know anything else. Here in Puerto Vallarta, if we drove on the main avenue, you would see two places that are open, two closed, another open, another closed, blah, blah, blah. He said, in Mexico City, the economy is so big that you guys are building restaurants underneath the bridges because there's no room to build. Mm. That's how big the economy in Mexico City is. Mm. And I said, you know what? You're right. If you want to compare it, being in Puerto Vallarta is like driving one of those old Beetles. If you move to Mexico City, you feel like you're driving a Jetta. But then when you move to the U.S., you feel like you're driving a Ferrari.
Interesting.
It's you feel it. I mean, if I would have opened this business in Mexico City, it would have taken me years to get where I'm at right now. Mm. I think that a lot of immigrants do value that because we've seen the other side. Okay. We often comment that whenever I'm having lunch with friends that come from abroad, we always say, the people here in the U.S. don't know what they have. They don't value the economy that they have. It's understandable. But for us moving, we do feel it. We feel the speed of the economy here. Yeah. And I mean, that could go on either way because you could grow really fast or you can go under really fast. Yep. Right. Because just as you're making more money, you're also spending a lot more money. Yeah. So you can go under really fast, but you feel it. So if you drive carefully, and that means being a smart business owner, you can really thrive here in the U.S.
Yeah. I think that energy is actually, and James and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago, that energy is part of the American fabric, of the culture. I read a book a couple of years ago, and it was about the building of the Erie Canals. This was done 200 years ago. Okay. And they had a gentleman come from Europe to consult on the project. And when they got off the boat in New York, they were like, this entire country is just teeming with energy. Everyone is involved in an enterprise. Everybody is doing something. And I realized then, reading that book a couple of years ago, that literally is part of the American culture. There's no other way our economy is so much larger than all other economies in the world.
Yeah.
And we're just buzzing.
Yeah.
Yep. And like you said, it's a culture. It's
Yes.
it's in the fabric. It's people want to thrive. People want to open a business. If you want to open a business, you can. You know, there's ways to do it. The financing tools are here. Permit wise, you can open a business here in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
In certain countries, for example, in Mexico, it'll take you a couple of days or a couple of months to actually get a lot of things structured to open your business.
There's a definitely different pace here than other countries. So I lived in Africa for a little while, and I came in as the really large white guy in a sea of the Africans in Zambia, and I basically had to sit all of my employees down because we ran a mission. I said, I want you to understand, I'm a fast-talking American. I just talk fast. I do things differently. And it's not because I don't respect your cultures, because their greetings, if you greet somebody in Africa, it literally is, oh, muli shani, oh, kwai shani. And so there's this big, every time you see somebody, it is a huge greeting. And so I'm walking through my compound and I'm like, hi, And so I had to sit them all down and go, listen, I want you to know that when I say hi, know that in my heart, I'm doing your greeting.
It's just a super condensed version.
Yeah, I know that I want to, but my brain is just working fast.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking differently because I come from a different country. And they all had to get used to it. So I would have workers walk, bona. Hi. And they raise their hand and they turn around and leave. Because I had to really kind of learn to slow down a little bit because I was freaking people out. You know, it's like I'm doing things at the American pace. Yeah. And over there, I mean, what's your rush? You know?
Exactly.
What are you rushing for?
Life will still be there when you get done.
Absolutely. Listen, I don't want to run anywhere.
Yeah,
being chased by an animal or something.
Yeah.
So coming in here, opening a business, you've been in business now 3 years?
Almost 3 years
Almost
now.
3 years.
Almost 3 years.
You got to have some lessons you've learned, some things that you wish you would have done differently, some good wins. Share with us a little
changes in the pipe now. I'm not doing it that way again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, fortunately, I had already opened a couple of businesses in Mexico, like I said, the bar and the hazard waste management. Mm-hmm. So that does give you experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Doesn't matter the business that you're opening. You know you're opening a business, and you already know the drill. But therefore, you're also afraid because there's things you know you're not considering, and you don't know what they are.
Yeah, it's the you don't know what you don't know
exactly
factor.
You know, we all have a little bit of an ego, and you think that if you open another business tomorrow, you know better, and you probably do, right?
Probably would.
Yeah, but I know that it's going to be hard, and I know that and here's the thing, you don't know what mistakes you're going to make. You try to foresee it, you try to calculate, but you're just afraid that things are not going to go your way. So things that I would have liked to do different. Oof. A lot of them have to do with technical issues. That's one of them. I got into a very technical business, and I knew that I was getting to a technical business. So I would have, number one, I think that if you're going to go into it the more technical it is, spend more time prior opening the business learning those technicalities.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Do that. It's worth it. I mean, the first year, my mindset for the first year was, I'm not going to concern myself about sales. I'm not going to concern myself about revenue. I'm going to concern myself about learning. The first year is going to be just about learning. So I'm going to try to go into all the kind of jobs that I can, the different ones, controlled, of course, in a controlled environment, not try to do something that I can't. But I'm going to try to do as much as possible, cover myself,
sure,
et cetera, et cetera. And so the first year was all about paying the learning curve. And we all like to use the phrase "pay the learning curve." You just don't realize that you're literally paying with money for that curve. The sweat part is okay. It's the money part that really hurt.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you do pay for it. And that's something that you got to learn and you got to contemplate. Also, one thing that I was happy that I did is when you open a new business, you got to understand that you got to have deep pockets. you might either have some money saved or some other income. I still manage a couple of customers here from Mexico, so that's helped. I didn't have to jump from 0 to 100 in one day,
Right.
which is great. In my case, there's a lot of lines of business. Showers being one of them, for example.
Sure.
And regularly showers are expensive. You know, a new family shower can go anywhere from $1,200 to, let's say, $3,500, $4,000, depending on how big it is or whatever. So if you have a go back, it's very costly. You know.
Yeah, we say that about our business as well. The bigger the job, the bigger the hiccup. If you have a bad experience or something doesn't go right on the job,
Yep.
if it's a small job, you just gloss over it, you take care of it, and you pass it in a day or two. But if you have a large job where you have, and we call it a hickey, but if you take a big hickey on a job like that, you could be several weeks digging out of that hole.
And our issue would be labor. But for you, a pane of glass you have to replace, that's very costly.
Yeah, for us, exactly. Because I mean, a pane of glass can be several $100s. So to have to go back, it takes a long time because to take a shower apart takes a long time. So you know you're going to spend at least a half a day in a go back, and then if you got to replace a piece of glass, add that into it.
Right.
So it's very expensive. So
and then you have to also factor in the cost, the time opportunity cost. You could have been out creating fresh revenue.
Yes.
Right.
So even though those showers seem to be very appealing, and it's probably where there's the most competitors at. Out of all my lines of business, I would say that the one that has the most competitors is the shower business.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants the big tickets, right?
Sure.
You know, it's not the same to make a 20% profit on $100 than it is on $2,000.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And but then that's also the line of business where you get the most go backs to.
I'm curious if you have any regrets having chosen the glass business.
Every day.
Is that right?
Every day.
Have you since seen another business that you think now maybe I should have done that?
Well, here's the thing. But I know that it doesn't matter which line of business I would have gone to. I would have regretted it every day.
Okay.
So you know,
it's a good point.
You deal with the punches, and you know, every day I have my good moments. I enjoy them. I enjoy my victories, and every day when there's something wrong, I'm like, you know what? This too shall pass.
Yeah.
But now you know
it's a good attitude.
You know, I learned this because I was visiting a customer in Mexico who owns schools, and I've always thought that schools are a really good business to have. Well, number one, it could be a good business, but then again, every business can be a good business if you manage it properly.
Sure.
Right?
He owns schools?
He owns schools, exactly, in Mexico.
Like educational schools?
Yeah, like educational private schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, man, I really envy you. You have this great schools, blah, blah. I mean, I really envy you. He's like, I'll sell it to you right now. I was like, what? He's like, I'm fed up with it.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And he was telling me about all that he has to put up with, with the authorities, with the schooling authorities, which are a pain. But then again, I was in the environmental business, and the environmental authorities were also a pain.
Yeah.
And in the transport business, the transport authorities are also a pain. So I learned that, it doesn't matter which business you're in.
They're all pains.
They're all pains. Yeah. But
a wise man once told me, no matter what business you get in, it has its own brand of headaches.
Yep.
The key, he told me, is to get into a business that has the kind of headaches you don't mind dealing with.
Right. And you know what? And a lot of it is a yes. And a lot of it is a good attitude. And you deal with the punches, and you realize that it doesn't matter what business you're in. When I owned the bar, everybody was like, "Oh, I envy you so much," and I would go like, "I'll sell it to you right now." Yeah. I'll sell it to you right now. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. You're gonna get the headaches, but you keep your eyes on the prize, and you just also try to enjoy the ride.
Sure.
I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy going to a customer and advising him and giving him the best advice And when I see a happy customer, that puts a smile on me. When we know we did a good job, when he said, sometimes he just says, "Hey, thank you. This was more than I expected." That is plenty. Well, that in the check, of course, but that's what you want. So it doesn't really matter what business you're in. Yeah, enjoy it as much as you can, because if you think you're going to go to a business where there's going to be no headaches, you're just kidding yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If one of our listeners wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Well, number one, want to contact me directly, he can call to my cell phone, which is 407-497-3616. And just tell me that he'd listened to us in this podcast. And if he needs any advice, or if he needs an estimate, or he wants to learn more, he can just contact me. We'll always be glad to be of service.
You have a website?
We do. Just Google the Glass Guru. It's the largest growing franchise in glass. So just Google the Glass Guru and you'll find us. There's probably a Glass Guru near you.
Yeah, theglassguru.com is the main site.
Exactly. Awesome. We're in Southeast Orlando, and we service all of the areas. So just let us know. A lot of things that we do, for example, are mirrors, which by the way is a really good line of business for us. I love mirrors, especially those big projects like for gyms and those. We love those.
Yeah.
So mirrors, we do a lot. Like I said, we do a lot of showers. We do a lot of, now we're going to storefront, tabletops, and just foggy windows, which is something that I learned here. There's a lot of foggy windows. Double pane windows will go bad eventually, and they'll get foggy because of the moisture that goes in, and you got to replace them, whether it's today or the day you sell your house. So if you're going to pay for it, you might as well fix it today and enjoy it, not the day you sell your house, and that's it. So anything glass related, just give us a call, and we'll gladly help you. Yeah.
Good advice, Marcos. Thanks for being here today. That was great.
Yeah, thanks for
Love
dropping
learning more
by.
about
It was
you.
real nice being with you guys, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk again soon. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.